We've talked before about the idea of assertions, context, and evidence, right? And that every part of your body, of your paper, should fall into one of those three categories. This week, I want us to now think about breaking down just the assertions portion of that model into three separate groups, and that is claims, reasons, and foundations. So if you have not already pulled up the Claims, Reasons, Foundations PowerPoint, you probably want to do so now, and I'm not going to lead you through the whole PowerPoint again because, as with last week's, it is meant to be read, but I do want to lead you through just basically those first three slides. So if you haven't done that, pause for a minute, pull it up, get ready to read it. There are some extended examples of how to do this model of argument analysis in that PowerPoint. You will want to work through them because argument analysis can be a little bit tricky to get the hang of at first, but it's a powerful, powerful tool, and it is sort of the basis of thinking critically about arguments. So, think back. In the body of your paper, you want to make sure that everything is either context to understand the issue, an assertion about the issue, the idea, or evidence to help support that assertion. Okay, we're just breaking down assertions here. The claim in the assertion is the most provable thing. So the thing that needs most to be proven maybe would be a better way to phrase that. The claim is what you want to say, what you want to argue. And then usually the second part of that claim are the reasons for the claim. So if you make it to slide 3, you're going to see there's a model X because Y based on Z. What I've just given you are the X and the Y. X is the claim because Y. So when you're trying to figure out the reasons for your claim, it's anything that follows the word because. Okay? So, for example, if I were to say that I think that winter is coming, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, I apologize. I think that winter is coming because it's getting colder. And that's a really simple one. Very, very basic. Now, that's X because Y. Okay? Now, what I haven't given you is the evidence for the reason. And that's the thing that often gets really tricky for people. The claim and the reason are part of your assertion. X because Y. Winter is coming because it's getting colder. The thing that you then have to prove to me is the reason it's getting colder. Because if you can prove that reason, then if you've given me evidence for that reason, and that goes back to that claim or assertions, context, and evidence. Evidence supports reasons. Then I have a solid backing to support the claim. Okay, now notice that evidence is not part of the model we're working with right now. Evidence and the quality of it is something that we will also analyze, but right now we're just breaking down the quality and the structure of an assertion. So in that case, you just want to know what the person wants you to accept and then what their reasoning is for that claim. Okay. I've left off Z as well, the foundations. Foundations are a little bit more complex to work with because a lot of the time foundations are not visible. Foundations mean all of the things that you have to believe in order to make that claim for those reasons. So, for example, in the model I just gave you, winter is coming because it's getting colder. What makes it possible for me to make that kind of claim? Now, it's not just more reasons, more becauses. It's also not evidence, things that support, yes, it's getting colder. Here are my meteorological readings. Here, I've been tracking the temperature. Foundations, instead, are all of the things that I have in my schema and in my worldview that make it possible for me to make any kind of argument in this sphere. So, for example, in this particular argument, I'm making that claim because I have a lifetime of experience of knowing that the seasons do change and associating cold with winter, and with knowing that I also need somehow to be gauging how I measure the temperature and that I can make a reliable statement about the seasons. All of that may seem extremely obvious to you, but that's because you have the same foundations that I do. If, on the other hand, you were from a different planet, then you wouldn't necessarily have the same exact kind of foundations that I do. I know that around a certain time of the year, temperatures drop and then they stay low. generally, okay? Those foundations, though, would change if all of the circumstances of my previous life, all of the schema that I have were different. Now, when you get into different kinds of political arguments, this becomes a little bit less obvious for people, right? Because often people can come up with more than one reasonable claim about a hot button issue, and they have what they believe to be perfect reasoning. And the reason that they disagree with somebody else who also believes that they have perfect reasoning is that they don't share foundational beliefs. So, something to pay attention to as you go about analyzing your argument and as you go about analyzing other people's arguments. If you don't share a foundation with someone, no matter how well constructed their argument is, you're not going to be able to convince them to come to your side unless somehow you can show them that your foundations are more valid. Foundations are where arguments are won and lost, but often in terms that are not explicitly addressed. You're going to look at Gatto again, and Gatto is an excellent example of this. He has a certain set of foundations that he believes in very strongly that make it possible for him to say schools are failing because of blank, or we don't need schools because of blank. There are some subclaims there as well, and I'll let you work those out. But that's his main claim. You want to work through his reasons for that claim. You also want to work through the foundations for that entire argument. If you don't accept him, maybe you don't accept him because you don't think he's made his case very well with his evidence, but also maybe you don't accept him because you have a very different background, a very different political ideology, a different view of the purpose of public schools. That's the foundations. You start from different places. You come from different places. So if it helps, you might think of foundations as where you come from. And you may think of the claim as the thing you want to prove and the reasons as all of the becauses. So work through the PowerPoint. You're going to get some more examples of it, but I just wanted to kind of orient you in that framework and help you see how it fits in with the assertions and context and evidence that we put forward last week. So if you have any questions working with this model, I know it's a little bit tough. It can be a bit frustrating, especially at first. That's why we're working on it before you start doing this to your own argument. You will be doing this with your own argument in Project 5. And I've also included, because you will be in Project 5 working through developing a model for your argument, and that means a visual model, something that will show me and show you the relationship between all of that material in your project, in your argument. There's a second video called Building an Argument House and a PowerPoint that will lead you through kind of a visual model for what claims and reasons and foundations may look like, and that may help you get a different kind of grasp on this subject. Again, if you have any questions as you work through it, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I'll look forward to seeing your work.